So the startup ecosystem in India is being touted a lot. It's been great. A lot of startups coming up. Flipkart just got sold to Walmart for so much money. Ola, Byju, a lot of unicorns coming up. But is there a really good startup ecosystem in India, or are these guys just one-offs who've been brilliant?
Every startup ecosystem starts off with one-offs that have been brilliant. So whether Flipkart was brilliant or not is not actually the question, because they managed to sell, and that's what matters in this system. What really does matter in the longer term is whether you get big sustainable startups that perhaps went public. There are a few. There's Naukri.com, which is public now. It's more of a VC than a company today, but that's one company. That's an example. Just Dial is another example of a small company that got funded up. The startup ecosystem's just starting. We've seen some companies start to list in the SME space. A company called E2E did 40% higher or 60% higher listing on the SME exchange. We will see a lot more of this happen in the next few years. So a lot of exits, and honestly, exits make the industry. So people haven't been able to find great exits so far. You haven't seen multi-billion dollar. You haven't seen a single thing of the size of WhatsApp, which is finally Flipkart, right? So 18 or 19 billion, or maybe I think 20 billion in total is what Flipkart was at. And when WhatsApp was sold, it was sold for about 18, I think, net total billion. They got bought in by these shares. India, we've seen a few, but Flipkart's been a rank exception. None of the really big deals have happened here. So very early stage in our ecosystem. I think a lot more has to happen, and a lot more non-tech part of the ecosystem is still starting to move. So Ola, for instance, there isn't any public company in the taxi or ride-sharing space. There isn't a big public company in the online grocery like Big Basket, Grofers kind of space. Amazon is not public in India. Flipkart will not be public in India now that it's Walmart. So we don't see the big companies grow up by themselves to be big. They're just getting bought out. The second phase will be when companies list and become massive players like DMart is today, or like perhaps Bajaj Finance is today. So when that happens, I think we'll start being into step 2. We're just in step 1 right now.
Okay. And why is it that we've not reached step 2 yet? I mean, if you've got players like Flipkart, you've got Ola, if they launch an IPO today, they're going to raise a lot of money. So why haven't we seen these guys make the next step?
I think some of it is Indian regulations that require profitability. So if you're a greenfield project, you can raise capital money saying, I'm greenfield, I'm new, give me money. If you're an established company, they want to ensure that you're profitable a couple of years at least before you kind of raise capital from the markets, and they have restrictions saying you've got to raise at least 10% and you've got to get more scrutiny on yourself and so on. So there's a bit of concern by a lot of investors that they will eventually end up disclosing a lot more information and so on. There's also the company structure. Flipkart, for instance, is like an Indian company, was a shell of sorts. The main company was Flipkart Singapore. Flipkart Singapore owned Flipkart India and therefore transmitted money over whenever salaries had to be paid and so on. But it was not the revenue generation. I mean, it was, of course, the revenue generation was all happening in India. The ownership resided in Singapore. Now, there are investors who invest in Singapore who could not invest directly in India. If you take the Indian entity public, it makes no sense, because then the Singapore investors get very little exposure to that exit. How do you then manage this? A lot of companies today that you see, Ola included, I think, and a bunch of others, maybe Ola is not, but a lot of the other companies that you see today are actually headquartered outside of India for complicated purposes, and therefore their listings may not happen in India. Make My Trip listed in the US, not in India, although most of its business is from here. So that part of that ecosystem, you can't change that. In the sense, you can't just overnight change ownership. But the rest of it you can. For instance, these companies could get profitable, they could list, they could be interesting new markets that are created, and I'm hoping that happens in the next few years, because as a public market investor, we would like to see more innovative companies in the indexes.
Okay. So it's interesting you mentioned all these companies outside India. So the reason they've set up outside India, it's easier to get investment outside India for companies like that. But long term, do you see these companies eventually listing outside India, like in Alibaba in New York, or do you see them, future startups starting up in India actually, and eventually leading to listings or exits or whatever in India?
I think to a large extent, companies that are listed outside of India are not in home territory, right? So you don't get a lot of the scale issues like people who have capital inside India wanting to participate and not be able to because you're listed abroad. Look at Rediff, interesting company when it was. Perhaps the management wasn't up to par, and eventually the company's kind of, gone severely down. But they listed outside of India. They were a primarily Indian company. There wasn't much exposure, and the US investors found this too small for them to bother. So you could list outside India, but I think the future is that you will get better deals if you list inside India, whether you like it or not. People inside India really would be seeing the Ola cars on the road and would want to invest in that Ola versus somebody in the US who has the choice of Grab or Uber or Hitch or whatever it is that comes their way. So there's or Lyft. So you end up with people in the US having choices. In India, there's not that much choice. So you're better suited to investing in India.
So just the last question on this. The infrastructure in US has made it possible for certain companies to do IPOs and take on the giants. So my favorite example is Snap. The guys who built Snapchat. Now they had an opportunity to go to Facebook, but they declined and they launched their own IPO, and for now they're sustaining. So do you see the infrastructure in India, the financing capability in India for companies to go up that fast and take on incumbents?
You can. There's no reason why you can't. You shouldn't do it in the way that a lot of companies have done, in the sense they've just burnt money. Like you buy customers using discounts. You have to understand that those customers are not going to stay forever, right? So your philosophy being very altruistic, if I give them discounts 5 times, the 6th time they will buy from me. That's not always true. When Amazon stops its discounting, people will move out of Amazon into whatever else is discounting. And even Amazon, which has got a lot of its act together elsewhere in the world, is going to find it difficult to continue to get the same customer base working for them. Unless you end up in a situation where Amazon is actually going to be the cheapest, which it is in the US, it's not in India. There are a lot of products from Amazon which you can't, So you will find that the mechanisms of attracting customers, if it were a way for a market to blossom, and Alibaba's done this in China, from Alipay to the e-commerce products. There is Weibo, and there's a bunch of startups over there that have just gone to extreme scale by perhaps some layer of discounting, but also by literally grabbing all of the market. We need those kind of startups in India, and you'll need money to make that happen. But many of them are trying, and there isn't actually enough capital available to take that big bet.